welcome back to Children's Church. I'm so glad to have you here with me. All this August, we've been talking about acts. Today's act is an act of pride. We're in the book of Genesis because someone special asked for a story from Genesis. We are in chapter 11 and a story called the Tower of Babel. We're going to jump right in because it's not a long read, but we're going to talk about it a little bit after. At one time, the whole earth had the same language and vocabulary. As people migrated from the east, they found the valley in the land of Shinar and settled there. They said to each other, "Come, let us make oven-fired bricks." They used the brick for stone and asphalt for mortar, and they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower with its top in the sky. Let us make a name for ourselves, otherwise we will be scattered over the whole face of the earth." Then the Lord came to look over the city and the tower the men were building. The Lord said, "If they have begun to do this as one people, all having the same language, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language, so they will not understand one another's speech." So from there, the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth, and they stopped building the city. Therefore, its name is called Babylon, for the Lord confused the language of the whole earth, and from there the Lord scattered them across the earth. All right, we have some big words in our Bible. We're going to read them off real quick. Ziggurat, stepped building, usually with a temple on top, built by placing smaller levels of brick on top of the larger layers, like so. Most Bible teachers believe the Tower of Babylon was a ziggurat. Now, after the flood, God told people to fill the earth. Instead, they settled in the valley of the land of Shinar. There, people decided to build a city for themselves with a tower that reached the sky. They wanted to show how great they were and to bring glory to themselves instead of God. Now, at that time, all the people spoke the same language, so God came down and caused them to speak different languages. Because they could no longer understand each other, they had to stop building the city. And they began to move away in groups to live with those who spoke the same language. In this way, God scattered the people over the face of the whole earth. So why did I call this an act of pride? A few reasons. One, they weren't doing what God told them to do. God told them to disperse. And instead they built a city. And then they built a tower. They wanted to be taller and higher than God. And they tried to build their way there. Now, God was understandably upset that they couldn't follow a very simple instruction. So he did something to make them scatter. He scattered them himself, and he changed the language they spoke. Up until that point, everyone spoke the same language. Now here's a little fun fact for you. In our modern world, there are over 5,000 spoken languages. And that's not counting how many we've lost in the time since Jesus, because we know that many languages are no longer spoken that once existed, and we don't even have record of them. So when it says God scattered them and they began to speak different languages, it spawned into many, many languages. Now I think that's an interesting thing God did, because he understood that if they disobeyed him on such a simple thing, unless he made it so they couldn't do it again, they were going to do it again. He could have just knocked down the tower and they would have just built another one. He had to scatter them. And this was an act of God that we call the Tower of Babel, or the Tower of Babylon. And it's where we get the English word babble. It means confused tongue. It means incoherent speech, because they could no longer understand each other. How many languages do you guys know? How many different ways of saying hello can you think of? Let's see, I could do hello, hola, bonjour, samai, ciao,
Buongiorno.
buongiorno. I'm going to stop there. That's 6. Not terrible. Not the best, but not terrible. How many do you know? How many languages did God create in one fell swoop? Now, it's probably not the over 5,000 we have today, because we know that some languages are descended from other languages, and so on and so forth. But it's such an interesting thing to think about, that the way our world is today happened because they wouldn't listen to what God told them to do, and God had to intervene. I think that's fascinating. So study up on some languages this week. We'll be back next week with another lesson, and I will see you guys then.